In the fast-paced world of social media, influencers often push boundaries to capture the perfect shot or viral moment. But sometimes the pursuit of online fame turns tragic. From dangerous stunts to risky adventures, some influencers have lost their lives while filming, leaving behind haunting reminders of internet culture's dark side. It is the kind of story that makes you stop scrolling, rub your eyes, and think, wait, did that really just happen? Because the tragic death of 23-year-old Mexican beauty influencer Valeria Marquez was not just another headline, it was a horrifying moment that unfolded in real time on TikTok right in front of her followers, and it turned what should have been a normal evening of live stream content into something that looked more like a scene from a crime documentary. Valeria was young, vibrant, and building her career in beauty and fashion, running her salon Blossom the Beauty Lounge in Zapopan, Jalisco, while also creating online content that drew in thousands who admired her makeup skills and bubbly presence. On May 13, 2025, she went live as usual, stuffed toy in hand, almost like a comfort prop. But viewers quickly noticed something was not right. Her nervous expressions, her uneasy glances, and her haunting words, something along the lines of, "They are coming," gave off the kind of tension that makes your stomach drop even if you are only watching through a screen. And then came the chilling interruption. A man reportedly disguised as a delivery worker with the promise of a gift arrived at the salon, walked inside, and in one of the most disturbing twists imaginable, asked, "Are you Valeria?" To which she replied, "Yes." Within moments, he pulled out a gun and fired at her, striking her in the chest and head, silencing her forever while the camera kept rolling. The live stream cut off only after someone believed to be a friend or employee picked up her phone and ended the broadcast. But by then, countless viewers had already witnessed a young woman's life violently cut short. What followed was a wave of grief and outrage across Mexico and beyond, because Valeria's killing was not just about an influencer. It was about a bigger, more terrifying issue. Femicide. Authorities quickly announced they were investigating her death under femicide protocols, given that Mexico has one of the highest rates of gender-based killings in the world, with nearly 10 women murdered every day, and Valeria's case, tragically, fit that grim statistic. Her salon, once a symbol of her ambition and independence, became a crime scene swarmed by investigators, forensic teams, and journalists, while her followers flooded social media with tributes, disbelief, and anger. The haunting detail that she seemed to know danger was near, that she almost predicted her fate live in front of her audience, made it all the more chilling, like a final, unintentional goodbye broadcast to the world. The investigation so far has raised more questions than answers. Who was the man who posed as a delivery worker? Why target Valeria, a young woman whose life seemed centered around beauty, business, and digital content? Was it a personal vendetta? A case of stalking, or something tied to the broader culture of violence in Jalisco, a region already infamous for cartel activity and high crime rates? While prosecutors dig into CCTV footage, interview her friends and family, and comb through her online presence, what remains certain is that Valeria's killing is not just another crime story. It is a reminder of how public lives can make women even more vulnerable, how fame in the age of social media can attract both admiration and deadly attention, and how tragedies like hers keep forcing Mexico to confront a crisis that refuses to go away. For her fans, it is heartbreaking to think that what started as a regular live stream meant to share beauty, positivity, and connection ended in violence that will never be forgotten, turning Valeria Marquez into yet another name on the devastating list of young women whose lives ended far too soon, leaving behind a legacy cut short and a live stream that no one ever expected to become her final moment. Sagar Tudu, a 22-year-old YouTuber from Berhampur, had a dream shared by countless young creators to capture breathtaking videos, earn recognition, and maybe ride the wave of virality into stardom. On August 23, 2025, that dream collided with reality in a way nobody expected. Sagar, along with some friends, traveled to the majestic Duduma Waterfall in Odisha's Koraput district to shoot reels and drone footage. Duduma isn't just another scenic backdrop, it's a massive 500-foot cascade, mesmerizing to watch but equally unforgiving. Despite warnings about rising water levels due to releases from the nearby Makun Dam, Sagar stepped onto a rock midstream, hoping to nail the perfect angle. At first, it looked bold, the kind of daring shot that racks up views, but in an instant, it became clear he had underestimated the raw power of nature. A sudden surge of water swept across, turning a reel into a real-life nightmare. The video of what happened next spread faster than wildfire, chilling, chaotic, and unforgettable. Sagar was caught off balance as the current dragged him, while friends shouted and desperately threw a rope in vain. Bystanders watched helplessly as the young influencer disappeared beneath the force of the waterfall, swallowed by currents no one could fight. What was supposed to be scenic content had now turned into haunting footage that left viewers stunned. The rescue mission began almost immediately with police, fire crews, ODRAF, and local volunteers combing the area using boats, divers, and even drones. But nature wasn't giving up its grip. Days of effort only turned up his filming bag with equipment and batteries, but no sign of Sagar himself. Heavy rains and treacherous currents slowed everything down, and though the search continued, by August 27th, the tragedy was already being spoken of in past tense. As with most viral tragedies, the internet responded in unpredictable ways. Some people mourned, empathizing with the pressures influencers faced to constantly up the ante for content, while others mocked, labeling him reckless and careless. The cruelty of memes and sarcastic comments poured in, overshadowing the grief of those who knew him personally. Yet beyond the noise, the story sparked a deeper conversation about how the chase for online validation often pushes young creators into dangerous territory, where one miscalculation can cost everything. Sagar wasn't some thrill junkie. He was a 22-year-old chasing a career path that millions dream of, but the Waterfall didn't care about likes, followers, or ambitions. His disappearance became a stark reminder that no reel, no video, and no fleeting fame is worth risking your life. Duduma remains breathtaking, but it now carries the weight of a cautionary tale, a reel gone wrong that turned into a tragedy, etched into the timeline of influencer culture. In late September 2024, the city of Tbilisi became the center of international attention after the tragic death of Russian influencer Irina Glazunova. At just 24 years old, she had been enjoying what should have been an ordinary night with a friend, filming a TikTok in First Republic Square. The video was meant to capture her singing along to the track For the Last Time by the Hunger Boys, moving backward as the camera rolled. What neither she nor her friend anticipated was that the seemingly harmless setting concealed a hidden danger, a knee-high barrier that bordered an open drop into a subway underpass. Distracted by filming, Irina stepped back, tripped over the small wall, and fell several meters headfirst into the underground passage. The injuries she sustained, including a fractured skull base and broken neck, proved fatal, and despite being taken to the hospital quickly, she passed away a few hours later. News of her death spread rapidly, amplified by the fact that the fall had been caught on camera. Viewers were shocked not only by the suddenness of the accident, but also by the conditions that allowed it to happen. How could a central square in a major capital city have such an obvious hazard left unaddressed? The answer lay in Tbilisi's infrastructure. The square, a remnant of Soviet-era urban design, still featured outdated structures, including the low parapet that had caused the fall. At just 30 centimeters high, it did little to serve as a protective barrier, and instead created the perfect scenario for a devastating accident. The public reaction was immediate and emotional. At the site of the fall, people gathered to place flowers and candles, transforming the location into a memorial. Online, users across platforms expressed grief and disbelief, sharing clips and stories that made Irina's final moments part of a global conversation. Many called for accountability, pointing out that her death could have been prevented with something as simple as a higher railing or clearer signage. City authorities, criticized for inaction, finally moved to install barriers around the dangerous drop. It was a reactive measure, but one that acknowledged in a painful way that a life had been lost to an avoidable design flaw. Beyond the infrastructure debate, Irina's death resonated because of who she was. She was not a reckless thrill-seeker chasing viral fame. She had recently graduated from the Russian Academy of National Economy and Public Administration, worked in public relations, and was admired for her humor, kindness, and advocacy for animal welfare. Her online presence was authentic, relatable, and human, qualities that allowed her to connect with followers on a personal level. That is why her final video struck such a chord. It captured not danger or risk-taking, but a simple, joyful moment interrupted by tragedy. It felt both random and deeply unfair, underscoring how fragile everyday life can be. In the weeks following her death, discussions expanded beyond the specifics of the accident. Commentators reflected on how modern habits like filming content in public spaces collide with environments that were never designed with these behaviors in mind. The risks of distraction, often minimized in daily life, took on new weight in Irina's story. Her death became more than just an isolated event. It was a cautionary tale about the intersection of technology, human attention, and urban planning. Today, Irina Glazunova's name remains linked to both a painful personal loss and a broader societal lesson. Her story reminds us that behind viral headlines and shocking videos are real lives with real futures cut short. It is a call to improve safety, to pay attention to how cities are designed, and to remember that even in the most ordinary moments, life is fragile. Georgi Dzhan-Janalitsa's story is one of those haunting reminders that sometimes chasing the perfect shot can come at an unimaginable cost. At just 23 years old, the Georgian-born fitness influencer had built a life many admired. He was energetic, ambitious, and had a growing online following of more than 100,000 people. His Instagram feed was full of workouts, motivation, and the kind of positivity that drew in fans from all over. Behind the inspirational posts and well-structured captions, there was also a young man who loved adventure, exploration, and pushing himself to new experiences. Unfortunately, one of those adventures would end in tragedy. On March 13th, 2024, Georgi was in Italy exploring Roghudi Vecchio, a deserted ghost village perched in the mountains of Calabria. The spot is famous among urban explorers for its eerie, crumbling buildings and haunting atmosphere. It was the perfect backdrop for dramatic content, but it was also a dangerous setting with unstable structures and precarious edges. While standing on an abandoned balcony without railings, Georgi slipped, lost his balance, and fell into a deep ravine below. Just like that, the life of an influencer known for strength and vitality was cut short. The rescue attempt was immediate but incredibly difficult. Firefighters from the Melito Porto Salvo unit, along with the SAF Speleo Alpino Fluviale team, rushed to the scene knowing every second mattered. Yet the ravine was so deep and rugged that even getting close to him required the assistance of a helicopter. After hours of effort, they were able to recover his body and transfer it to Salin Jonish before handing it over to local authorities. For those who had followed his journey online, the news hit like a shockwave. Here was a young man who seemed invincible in his workouts, always projecting power and positivity, suddenly gone in an instant because of one unlucky slip. His death was a stark contrast to the content he loved creating, videos and posts meant to inspire strength, motivation, and health. The impact on his loved ones and followers was immediate. Georgi's close friend and fellow influencer Chris Kogias, who had been traveling with him, confirmed the heartbreaking news with a simple but powerful message. Zane is no longer with us. Please pray with us for his soul to rest in peace. His girlfriend, Elena Margariti, shared a deeply emotional tribute on Instagram, describing him as the most beautiful person inside and out and promising, "We will meet again." The message captured the raw pain of losing someone so young, so vibrant, and so full of potential. There is a sobering lesson in his story. Social media often glamorizes risk-taking, adventure, and the pursuit of ever more breathtaking content. But the reality is that these moments can carry very real dangers. Georgi's death is not the first of its kind. There have been other influencers who lost their lives while chasing dramatic shots in risky locations. But his tragedy serves as yet another reminder of the thin line between adventure and danger. His passing leaves behind not only grief, but also reflection. To his fans, Georgi will be remembered for his drive, his optimism, and his dedication to fitness. To his loved ones, he will remain the cheerful, strong, and kind soul they knew off camera. And to the wider world, his story is a reminder that behind the perfect angles and captivating content are real people with fragile lives that can change in a split second. Georgi Dzhan-Janalitsa's life may have been tragically short, but his impact through his content, his friendships, and the message of positivity he carried remains strong. Ana Pauli, whose real name was Ana Beatriz Pereira Alves, was a rising Brazilian influencer and content creator whose life ended in one of the most tragic and shocking ways imaginable. On January 23, 2025, she fell to her death from the 8th floor of the Mont Blanc Apart Hotel in Nova Iguacu, Brazil, while reportedly filming adult content. What should have been just another night of work turned into a mystery that has kept investigators, fans, and the media piecing together the events of her final hours. Her death was not only heartbreaking but also surrounded by confusion, unanswered questions, and conflicting stories that made it even more haunting. According to reports, Anna Polly was at the hotel with at least 2 or 3 men who were with her to film explicit material. At some point during the night, after drinking alcohol and allegedly consuming drugs, the situation spiraled into something no one could have anticipated. Witnesses and those present gave police wildly different accounts of what actually happened, which immediately raised suspicions. Some said she fell accidentally while leaning or climbing over the balcony. Others hinted it was possible she was pushed, while another version suggested intoxication caused her to lose balance. The contradictions in statements left authorities with more questions than answers, and the Baisata Fluminense Homicide Division opened an in-depth investigation. Police quickly moved to gather every bit of evidence possible. Hotel CCTV cameras were seized for review. Her phone was taken for digital examination, and witnesses, including hotel staff, were interviewed to reconstruct the timeline. An autopsy and toxicology tests were ordered, aiming to determine whether drugs or alcohol directly contributed to her fall. Meanwhile, those last present with her admitted to being under the influence of substances, which cast even more doubt on their reliability as witnesses. While some news outlets suggested it might have been an accident, others hinted at darker possibilities, pointing to the inconsistencies in testimonies. As days passed, reports began to lean toward the theory that Anna Polly's death was accidental. Some investigators suggested she may have slipped while attempting to climb or lean over the railing with no clear evidence of foul play, but even with that possibility, the lingering suspicion and unanswered questions continued to haunt the case. For her family, friends, and fans, the uncertainty only deepened their grief. Her boyfriend, Pedro Henrique, shared his devastation publicly, mourning the sudden loss of the woman he loved and calling for a complete and transparent investigation. His emotional tributes showed just how deeply Anna's passing affected those closest to her. Anna Polly's funeral took place on January 25, 2025, at the Jardim de Mesquita Cemetery in Rio de Janeiro. Mourners gathered not only to say goodbye, but also to remember her as more than just the headlines that followed her death. She was a 27-year-old woman with dreams, ambitions, and a digital presence that had attracted thousands of followers. Her passing became a sobering reminder of how unpredictable and fragile life can be, especially in the world of influencers and adult content creators, where risks sometimes lurk behind the glamour. In the aftermath, her story has sparked wider discussions about safety, accountability, and the pressures of the online content industry. The tragic circumstances of her death highlight the reality that behind the camera, influencers are human too, vulnerable to accidents, risky environments, and the consequences of choices made under pressure. While investigators continue to finalize their conclusions, one truth remains certain: Anna Polly's story will not be forgotten. Her name has now become a cautionary tale, a reminder that behind the allure of fame and content creation lies a very real human life, one that ended far too soon.